Hey everyone, and welcome to Aha Moments podcast with me, Kobi Omenaka. My guest this week is Sairam Sundaresan, who's a friend of mine and the author of the fantastic book, AI for the Rest of Us.
Learning from somebody who's 2 steps ahead of you is more useful.
There are 3 amazing takeaways from this episode. Number 1, you don't need to learn just from the experts. Look to the people just a couple of steps ahead of you. They might be a bit more useful to you.
Consistency always trumps intensity in the longer run.
Number 2, consistency always wins out in the end.
It won't dumb things down. It will, however, teach you how these algorithms work and what they mean for our lives.
And number 3, to go back to Sairam's book, get his book, AI for the Rest of Us. If you want to know anything about where we are with AI now and where it's going to go in the future, then this book is likely to be a fantastic starting point for you guys. Sairam, thank you so much for joining me on Aha Moments podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, Kobi. And how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's early morning here, my time, but these days I'm wide awake and active already. So this is all good for me.
Glad to hear it.
I'm excited for your next month, Sairam. That's one reason. That's why I invited you on the show. At the top end, it's good to say you're launching a book. Do you want to let everyone know what the book is, the name of it briefly? And I think it's on pre-sale now.
Yes.
But we'll go away from there and then come back into talking a bit more about the book in depth. But let everyone know about your book quickly, the title and where they can find it, and then we'll go into a bit more about you and your background.
So my book is called AI for the Rest of Us, and it's coming out with Bloomsbury, and it's releasing on October 30th, but pre-orders are available as of today. And it should be available wherever books are sold. So very excited about it. And it's for people who want to understand AI in plain human.
And that's a great place to start. So AI is the key buzzword at the moment. It's even usurped like cryptocurrency and all those things which it seems so 2020 nowadays. But let's take a step back and to work out how you got to this stage of working with AI and why it's so prolific now, and also learn a bit more about yourself. So where did you learn? Where did you first encounter AI? Because it's not new to a lot of people, and then I'm assuming that includes yourself.
Well, it's definitely been a lot, longer in terms of progress. It's AI has been around, I think, since the early 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. But
Wow.
I think we've had a huge boom in a lot of things, and we probably can touch on that in a bit. For me personally, I was fascinated with images and cameras as a kid. I used to take a whole lot of pictures, and there was a point where I actually learned that you could manipulate images like, Photoshop and Lightroom and those kinds. But then while I was studying in my undergrad, I found out that you could actually teach computers to understand images, which was
Right.
a ridiculously fascinating aha moment. Ding, ding. But that was the starting point for me to explore more about AI. And so I did my master's in machine learning, which is a subfield of AI. We'll talk about that as well. There's a lot to uncouple.
I'm looking forward to it.
But yeah, that was the main starting point for me. And that's when I discovered there's so much to learn. And, ever since I've been knee deep in the area trying to just take in as much as I can.
So I'm a keen photographer as well. I've got some cameras back there.
Nice.
What kind of pictures, what kind of photos did you take? What kind of photographer were you?
When I was a kid, I was probably the worst kind. There was around I was taking a whole bunch that my parents were really annoyed about because I was, burning through film. But growing up, I was really fascinated with landscape and nature photography. So I used to
nice.
hike a lot and then go into the wilderness just to get away from the day-to-day grind. So that was my jam.
So that's really technical photography as well, because you want to capture what your eye's seeing on film or on digital is actually quite difficult. And so your kit setup must have been quite intensive, super heavy tripods, not natural density filters and things like that. Is that right?
Right on point. I think there's 2 things I'm very grateful for. It's the rise of mirrorless cameras, because I used to, lug around these heavy DSLRs and these lenses, and that used to add to hikes. And back then I was not physically in great shape either, so I used to be really cursing my way through these hikes and just getting to the scene like God knows what hour in the morning or evening. But you're right, absolutely. The other reason I chose nature photography is that I don't need to ask permission necessarily. Sure. With people, it's a little more awkward sometimes. Can I take a picture of you? Sounds a little weird. And also nature is more patient, so I could mess up as many shots as I wanted, and then later get one and say, yeah, look at this shot. But jokes aside, that's you're absolutely right. Very technical, very gear heavy, and absolute pleasure to just experience it.
I remember I think I must have been 9 or 10. I asked my parents for a camera, just a 35mm camera. And guys, back in the day, I don't know how old you people are listening are now, but in the 80s and 90s, you get the film, as you said, burning through film. That's one thing my parents would be like, can you just think about the photo you're taking, Kobi? Because you pay for the film, and then also you pay for it to get processed. And also when I say processed, it would take days, if not a week, for the images to come back. And that was one of the things I really liked about it, is that you're not quite sure what you've taken until it comes back, and you're like, oh, that was terrible.
Yeah.
But I just, when your parents were saying about burning through film, I was like, I remember that. I know that exact thing, the exact conversation that they had with you.
I think the annoyance was that they were always out of focus and the background was very sharp. So
I think it's also my parents were from Nigeria. Your parents, I'm guessing, from India. My friends who had parents from the outside of the UK, where I did grow up, there's so much importance on the photograph. Like they would take the passport photos, they'd wear a suit and a tie and things like that, and you'd be kind of like, why are you doing this? Don't go to the airport in a suit and a tie. No one does that. Why are you doing this? So I think there's kind of there's that kind of focus on photography that people in the UK perhaps didn't really have.
Interesting. I mean, I can't agree with you more. It's definitely seen that. Like, I always used to wonder why, we had to get ready in the right way and, be all prim and everything for photographs. But yeah, it's a cultural thing, I guess.
I learned Photoshop. I learned Lightroom. I don't use them now these days because things are easier. AI does make things easier, and also because you can take 1 million photos, you can just pick the one that's closest to the one you're happy with. What was that like then in the early stages with AI manipulating the photos that you wanted to do? What year was that, and where you said you were at university at that point?
Yeah, so at that point of time, it was just classical image processing, as they call it. And basically means that you apply a bunch of filters, not Instagram filters. These are a little more technical. Yeah. But the point is that you could manipulate the pixels in an image and make things look sharper or blurrier, and you change the colors and the balance and all that stuff. But the computer vision side of it was very nascent. It's nowhere close to the things that is possible today. But it was very fascinating because all of a sudden this computer could understand, because the disconnect that I found was that I can look at a picture and, like you said, right, it's a 3D world. I can understand that, if there's a lamppost sticking out of somebody's head, it's probably behind that person, not on their head. But for a computer, it's not that easy. It's like everything's flattened into a 2D, it's like pancaked into a 2D representation. And on top of that, it's just numbers for a computer. It doesn't recognize what one number represents. One number represents the sky, the other represents the ground. It has no idea. And the very fact that we could teach these computers that this is how a scene is laid out was just mind-blowing for me. And from that point, it was just learning about that space. And then since then, we've had this explosion of neural networks, which sound very fancy, but it's actually a really clever idea. And they've completely changed the way that we can teach machines to learn. And
so explain for the rest of us what that neural network means, and how, like, do you have a clear example of what that is and how that works?
I can actually give you an example from the book. So
please.
So neural networks are inspired by the brain very loosely. I don't want people to, and the whole field started out with people trying to mimic what the human brain does, which is we have millions of neurons. They're all interconnected in some way, and neurons communicate with each other and process information. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, so this is a simplified explanation. But in the same way, they created these artificial neurons, which are also connected to each other, and then they pass messages between each other. So the goal then is to understand the world in the same way the human brain does. And where this whole deep neural network term came out is because there's, like, instead of having just 2 layers of neurons, imagine you have like a Lego, an array of neuron layers that are just connected one after the other, and it gets very, very, very deep. That's the whole point. It's not for a philosophical reason or anything. And what happens is when you start giving these neurons lots of data, they start identifying patterns on their own. So they identify interesting things. The early neurons in the stack, they identify simpler things like color, shape, texture. And the deeper neurons then use this output from the initial neurons, like the color, shape, and texture, then put that together in like, oh, this probably is a cat, this probably is the sky. And that's how they work. So you can think of it like a factory. So like you have an array of factories, the raw material comes in and then is processed in one of the earlier factories, and then the output of that goes to another factory and then to another factory, and then finally in the store, that's where you get your finished product. So imagine that this entire process from raw material arriving at a port to you buying the product at the store, everything that happens in between, that's kind of how neural networks function.
And how long ago was this when you first started working and seeing this?
2012 is when I started looking into neural networks. So again, neural networks themselves have been around since the 1920s, 30s. Okay. But there's an entire story of why they didn't take off back then. We can go into it if you'd like, but safe to say that 2011, 2012 was the moment when all the conditions were perfect for neural networks to completely take off. We had a lot of data, we had a lot of GPUs, and finally we had a neural network model that could leverage this data and run on GPUs. So all of a sudden it just completely stomped on the competition in terms of what was possible. And since then I've been looking into that area.
And where were you working? Were you working at the time? Or
I was at Qualcomm in the US, yeah.
Okay. And that's where you studied as well, right? In the States?
Yes, I studied in the States.
Yeah. What was that like?
Very different to how things happen in India. I think I was blessed from that perspective because in India, there's a heavy emphasis on theory, that you have to understand the fundamentals from a very theoretical standpoint. And in the US, there's a very practical bent. Like everything, you need to understand how it's applied in the real world. And there was a lot of unlearning I had to do when I went to do my master's in the US, because I went in with textbooks and I had to come out with working stuff. So it was a complete unlearning there, but I'm very grateful that I had the best of both worlds.
I watched a lot of film and TV, and there's always we see Good Will Hunting, we see MIT represented in Good Will Hunting through till the fraternities and things like that in American universities. So it's always interesting to see when people who've not grown up in the US have gone to college in the US and experienced that. Where was it you went to? Was it Stanford, was it?
I went to the University of Michigan.
Quite important who went there, but I can't think who it is right off the top of my head.
I believe it was Tom Brady, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it's the American footballer.
Yes.
So we got to know each other through trying to improve our personal brands on LinkedIn. And this is through Chris Donnelly, the Creator Accelerator program. And it was great to meet you then and continue to be a friend since then. One of the things that made the Creator Accelerator possible for me was AI and the use of and the generation of AI content, both text and images, because the course we went through was tough. Most people were there working full time, as well as going from creating zero content to creating like so much, just unfeasible amounts of content. And I couldn't have done it without the quality of AI generated content at the moment. What about yourself? Is that something that you experienced? How did you feel going through the process?
It was a fire hose, wasn't it? Like drinking from a fire hose. It's very challenging. I think the thing that a lot of people who maybe don't post regularly on any social media don't understand is it's not like you have all these ideas in your head. You just wake up one morning and just start hammering away at your keyboard. A lot of it is very systematic and a lot of thought goes into it, and just being able to offload some of that with a cognitive partner in some sense is just less stressful.
In the past, the cognitive partner has been a group of VAs or people or designers who can do, or copywriters who can help with the piece. And that's very, if you're fortunate, that can work 100%. It probably does work better than AI if you've got someone who literally works on your brain length. But then that's a cost that a lot of people can't afford right at the start, at least. So when ChatGPT, I mean, even when the course started, Saurav was in a completely different place, and then within week one, everyone was like, "Guys, Saurav's just like leveled up, and it can now make these images which it couldn't do 3 days ago." And that for me, that was astonishing. That the timing could not have been better for me on that. But what you said about the systematic nature, I think when I look at the creators now, I'm going now to YouTube, I'm going now to Instagram. People may have got lucky with a post, but the people who are consistently hitting it, they're going through, like saying there's a systematic process which says, okay, that worked, that didn't work. Maybe I'll do something more like this. What's the story I want to tell here? How can I make it's interesting. So in the first second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds, people are hooked in to then be able to tell the story I want to tell. It was truly fascinating, and I think your content improved the most, and also your account probably grew the most from anyone in the cohort.
Point is that experimenting a lot and then figuring out what works and doubling down on what works, I think that's the secret. But it happens over a much longer time span that people are willing to put the time and effort into. I think that's the differentiator, right? Because consistency always trumps intensity in the longer run. And I'm sure it's the same for you as well, because there was this feeling that you were posting into the void. You were doing all these fancy designs, even with AI assistance. It just took a heck of a lot of time. And you were just posting these, and then you'd get a few likes here and there, and you'd feel like, maybe I'm getting better. I got 3 likes yesterday. I've got 10 today. So, double digits. And then, just to know that there's like people getting like 50, 60 reposts. It was definitely, something that hits your ego and definitely makes you humble in that sense. But the longer thing is you experiment, and you get that courage to experiment and say, yeah, so what? What's the worst can happen? I'll get another 3 likes, so what? And then you just keep doing it. And over time you figure out that, okay, these are the kinds of things that my audience enjoys and is finding valuable. And that's the key, right? At the end of the day, if you don't put out something that's valuable to at least one person, then you're just wasting your time. So something that's valuable, something that your audience wants to see, and then iterating on that, and then making it better, like 1% better every day. And then eventually you get to a point where maybe like you can post garbage if you're having an off day, and then somehow it still gets those 50, 60 likes, and you're like, okay.
But the point is, what you think is garbage now after 6 months of doing it is not garbage, is way better than what you thought was
your standards go
content.
Up. Yeah. Your standards go up.
So this kind of ties in back to where you were when you're talking about a university in the States, where it was about experimentation, it's about doing the thing practically, not just the theoretical.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, as a growth marketer, I see that in that the amount of times I write a LinkedIn advert, I write an Instagram advert, or make some content, and they're like, is this the strongest it can be? And I'm like, I don't know, because I think it's good, but it's down to the people to decide what they want. I think, as far as I can tell, it makes sense to me, it makes sense to you, it makes sense to everyone else in this team, but we need to test it with other people, because that's the real validation. We can spend the amount of times I've spent so much time deliberating about whether there should be an apostrophe or if it's the right font. I'm just like, just people do.
See, that's the sign of growth, right? I mean, if you do that initially before you've posted, I don't know, for a month in a row, that's just your way of procrastinating. But the same thing after you've been posting for months, that's the sign of you improving, where you really care about the details and making sure that things stand out. It's just funny how the same thing stands out depending on where you are. And you're right, it absolutely depends on the day, because you never know who the algorithm's going to show your post to. You have no control over that. And then that is a huge part of whether or not something takes off. And then, of course, like, somebody has to engage with it, repost, do all those things for something to be valuable or perceived to be valuable. So,
yeah, by the algorithm. So, AI for the rest of us. You've learnt how, you've seen for yourself how the neural networks are working and starting to identify patterns to be able to differentiate a cat from what might have been a dog or a slug or just a random mug previously. Can you talk about the process from there through to, like, okay, now starting to use it in your own work? The conversations, this might be obviously this is probably decades through to releasing the book, but the conversations you're having with people as they're trying to understand AI and make it work for them, and at the point where you think, I should write these down in a book to make it more simple for people, because they're overcomplicating what they're doing, right? They're overcomplicating, and maybe there's a step where it's just like, get on with it. That we talked about with the posting, that we talked about when you're learning at University of Michigan. Just get on with it, and you'll start to figure these things out, and you'll start to get the outcomes that you want sooner rather than later. Okay,
that's a bunch of questions packed into one, but I'll try to unpack as much as I can. So I'm going to sound like a really old person now, but like when I was in school, but genuinely there was no chat GPT, there was none of these assistants that could answer questions at a moment's notice. you could, there was office hours, and that's what you could use with your professors, and you'd work with your peers in a study group, or you'd sit in the library going through books. And for me, there was a steep learning curve, I'll be very honest. It's not like, you just because you do your higher studies, it doesn't mean that you're going to be excellent at it. There's few people who are, but for most of us, it's a lot of effort that goes into it, and especially with machine learning. So just to be clear, most of what we see in today's AI world is something called machine learning, which is a subset of AI. And in machine learning, there's just a lot of mathematics, there's a lot of theory behind it, which is incredibly beautiful, by the way. So there's a reason why a lot of these textbooks have heavy jargon, heavy mathematical notation, because it's the accepted language. It's like, I mean, you can't just imagine somebody like Sir, Isaac Newton or somebody just writing hooks for a LinkedIn post or something like that. They wrote equations, and that's how they explain things, and that tradition carried on. So I feel like there was almost like you had to learn that language in order to appreciate what was going on and then truly understand. And without tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Notebook LM or any of the other things that we have today, it's a lot more manual, it's a lot more time intensive. And for me, just doing that process, I felt like I needed to do something to make it easier for the next set of people. So That was always in my mind. I enjoy writing and teaching, and I wanted to see if I could at least share it to myself a few years back. That was pretty much my baseline. So that was where all of this started. And then fast forward a few years, I was working in Intel. I moved from Qualcomm when this whole deep learning boom took off around, and I wanted to work more on these models in a larger scale. And at that point of time, I had the opportunity to work with astrophysicists, to be more specific, heliophysicists. They study the sun. Wow. And it's amazing the stuff they do. I mean, it's like what I do on a daily basis sometimes feels so insignificant to the kinds of things that they deal with. They're trying to understand the sun, for heaven's sakes. And, like a solar flare from the sun could potentially knock out communication from the earth. And they're trying to find out, can we, predict it so that we're all prepared and stuff. And here I am like tuning this neural network so that it's 1% better and doesn't annoy the user in some chat response or telling a dad joke. Just the scales are just so anyway, like these are like really smart people. And then I noticed that when I was trying to explain, so I was helping them as a machine learning mentor and lead. And what I noticed is that these are like whip smart people, and they were having some challenges understanding jargon in machine learning and AI. So, and the whole point was they could apply machine learning and AI to help them understand the sun and the universe. And it was, and I felt like that was a blocker. And that was the point where I started my newsletter. It's called Gradient Descent. And I started writing a post a day, pretty much. Not a day, a post a week. And the goal was basically write about what I want to learn, but write it in a way that is accessible, doesn't, require you to have a PhD, or at the same time doesn't dumb things down. Because the thing I see a lot is well-intentioned people, in order to explain things, they dumb things down to the point where you lose the essence of the idea. And then the problem there is, if you're just a layperson trying to understand it, it's fine. But if you're someone who's trying to use it, you lose that context of how to apply it. Because if you don't understand the limitations, the strengths, it defeats the point. You just know it at a surface level, right? So for me, that was the goal. And that's where I started the newsletter. And then fast forward a year, I had enough requests from some of the readers, like, can you just put this all together in like a form of a book? And I'd also annoyed enough people at dinner parties trying to explain my work and neural networks. And I actually vividly remember this. There was a party where somebody who was desperately trying to get away from me because I won't stop, yammering about neural nets. You finally made me understand I'm a non-coder, and I understand. I knew they were just being very polite and saying, I need to, please, I just want to go. But that was a very, very nice moment for me personally. And then that's when the book whole process started. After that was I was fortunate enough to find an agent and publisher, and the rest, as we say, is history. So all of this just started because I wanted to explain something in a way that wasn't gatekeeping knowledge for people who just didn't have the time or the background to understand it. That was the whole point.
But I think that's really important at a time when YouTube is where I get 99% of my information now. It's I find I gravitate towards the YouTube content creators who know the general field, but maybe they've learned something new like yesterday, and they're like, okay, I've learned this thing new yesterday. I'm going to teach you what I know and that means that you're not learning from someone who's thinking from a theoretical perspective. They've just gone in, they've done the thing, they've pressed the buttons. They'll teach you how to press the buttons if you need to, but they'll also show the outputs that you should be able to gain. And then also they'll come back next week and go, actually, now there's been a change to the platform. Here's an update to what I taught last week, because last week was up to date. Now it's not. Now it's changed.
Yeah. And just to add a point there, right? And they're also not teaching from the position of an expert, because for an expert, some of the things that are obvious might not be obvious to somebody who isn't.
Absolutely.
And they wouldn't remember the same mistakes that they may have made at a similar stage. And so just learning from an expert is helpful, but learning from somebody who's 2 steps ahead of you is more useful, alongside. I wouldn't say that you shouldn't learn from experts. You absolutely should. But what I am saying is, if there is somebody who's sharing their experiences, learning from their mistakes helps you a ton more.
Yeah, I think so. There's a YouTuber called Ali Abdal, and he's, do you know him?
Yep.
When he started, he was a medical student teaching the years below how to pass the exam. And that's something that a senior consultant who's been in the field for 20 years, they wouldn't be able to teach at the way that he was able to say, this is how I did my exams last year. So that's where he got his initial kind of, audience from, was those people who you know exactly where I was last year. And cause I'm learning guitar, and
nice.
I keep on thinking, I want to know, I should start a channel. I'm doing my grade 5 at some point this year.
Is this with Trinity College?
Yes, with Trinity, yeah.
Nice. Brilliant.
Well, yeah. And I keep on thinking I should make some videos about the grade 4. Because I know that when I speak to my teacher and ask him some questions, he goes into lots of theory, and I'm like, dude, I have no idea what you just said. But then if I have the time to decompress it, and then understand myself from my own angles, that's what I should be teaching on the YouTube channel. And that sounds like what you're doing with the AI for the rest of us, is you're learning the theory, but then also being able to parse it. There you go, to use a coding phrase, but parse it into a way that doesn't dumb it down, but makes it accessible at the same time.
Yeah, I think the practice has been going on for a few years now. I wasn't previously sharing in public, so the write notes and then saving it so that I'll know exactly what I thought at a given point of time about an idea. That practice has endured. The newsletter was sort of the starting point of sharing it with others who, like you, you're trying to share it with the folks in grade 4 and grade 3. So that practice started, I think, 3-4 years ago. And then the whole book was I already have this, so I exactly know what I felt when I was at that position. So let me just take that and then put it out there, and then maybe people can relate to it.
Yeah, I love it. So this podcast is called Aha Moments Podcast. I don't know why I laugh when I say that, because that's my whole podcast name. I'm laughing at my name.
No, there's a joy about having an aha moment. So
I've got 3 questions which I ask everyone at this stage. The first question is, can you think of an aha moment with either a company you worked in, or where you've seen your client or customer experience an aha moment, and you're like, okay, that's something I need to bottle and be able to share that with other people?
Was it like the client having a breakthrough and that kind of thing?
Clients had a breakthrough, and you didn't, because maybe you were at expert level, you forgot, or you didn't realize that was the breakthrough. That was the breakthrough that they needed to see. So what was that? What was that kind of breakthrough, and how did you capture that? How did you then make sure that other clients or other customers get that same experience and breakthrough?
Ooh, this is an interesting one. So I would say that the breakthrough, we were talking about how photography is flattening a 3D world into 2D. I saw the same dawning of realization in a client when I was demoing a project to them. So we were trying to, this is back in the, do you know the Kinect by any chance, the Microsoft Kinect with the Xbox?
No, I don't.
Okay, so just very simply, it's like this 3D camera that can track your activity, and then they used to have all kinds of games on it where you move and then the camera gets your movement and then the game responds. So that type of camera.
Was it on Xbox? Sorry.
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yes, sorry, I do. Yeah.
So this is around that time. So just also dating myself in the process, but it's all right. But basically, we had this project where we were able to scan people and objects and build 3D models, and this was a crazy breakthrough back then. I mean, now people would be laughing my iPhone does it, so what? But back then you had these humongous cameras and you had to like super glue them onto like tablets and stuff. It's like crazy times. And I still remember when we scanned them and they refused to believe that we were doing it entirely on the tablet. And first of all, they couldn't believe that the quality was so good. They thought we were sending it to some cloud computer somewhere. And so I still remember we turned on airplane mode and then we did the scan for them. They was like, you guys are pranking me. I don't believe this for a second. and then we explained the whole process, like how this whole 3D thing works and how, the whole algorithm basically. And I still remember seeing like this, the eyes just widen and understanding dawn. That I'll bottle up and, save for the rest of my life.
It's so beautiful when you see people's like, oh yeah, that's even if they don't say it in words, just a slight a muscle moves in their face.
But then you see that they get it after that. After that point, everything you say just seems to land differently compared to anything. Like you've been trying to convince them and explain why something does work or doesn't work or how some things works. And then they get it. And then after that, every question that they ask is more insightful and every answer you give is just opens up better conversations.
No, I love it. Second aha moment question is, what was the aha moment you had in a product or service that you buy?
I would say most recently, like the Notebook LM was my second aha moment. I've had plenty with a lot of products. I mean, like photo editing for the most part, but I'd definitely say Notebook LM was such a big aha moment for me because all of a sudden I could, like, just to give you an idea, right? It used to take me about 40 hours to draft a long newsletter post at some point because
40 hours?
40 hours a week. Pretty much because I had to read a whole bunch of papers. I had to understand whether they were worth writing about. And then I had to connect the points and then I had to write it in a way that people understood. And then I just fed a whole bunch of papers to Notebook LM and out came a 10-minute podcast summarizing the whole thing. And it's like I was just sat there thinking, what just happened? and it wasn't and yes, there were some points that were maybe not fully explained, but the very fact that there were two people, both of whom don't probably exist, talking about a whole bunch of papers that are in PDF.
Yeah.
And connecting the dots, producing a thesis, and then sharing it with you, like 40 hours to 10 minutes. That was just so yeah, Notebook LM for sure.
I love it. I've not used Notebook LM, but I do a similar thing where in ChatGPT I will get everything I want to research and ask it to.
But you should try Notebook LM. It works for just about everything. You can share YouTube links, you can share PDFs, you can share websites, and then it also becomes like your study guide if you really wanted to. Like you can ask it questions and then it uses the material you've shared to sort of ground its answers so that it hallucinates less. There's just like a whole bunch of things that we now take for granted that is baked into this, and I think it's a really well done product.
Okay.
And just FYI, I'm not affiliated with Google in any shape or form. Just saying that I really appreciate the product.
I didn't think you were, and also we should say I'm not affiliated with ChatGPT or Sora or any of the tools we mentioned before. And final question, aha moment question, or life hack. What personal aha moments or life hacks do you have which you now use in day-to-day life or your life in general?
Personally, you mean like in terms of non-work related things, or do you mean...
exactly, non-work related.
Okay, so this is like non-AI life hacks. Okay. I think the thing for me that helps a lot is journaling, because I find that as soon as I wake up, I usually have too many thoughts, and if I want to write about something or think about something, it's just muddled with like, oh, should I do the laundry today or tomorrow? Should I buy this grocery thing that's on the back of my head? So I just journal. I just literally dump everything that's on my brain onto a piece of paper, and after that my mind's a lot clearer. And then the second hack I'd probably say is this sounds like extremely OCD, but I'm not. But I actually plan my week, like the priorities for my week. I just have 3 priorities for the week that are not related to work, and then I just see where I am at the end of the week with those 3 priorities. So that gives me an idea of 1, whether they're actually priorities, and 2, how much I value them. because if I get them done, it means that they were really important. And if I get them partially done, it means that it gives me an opportunity to investigate, why I couldn't finish it. Was I strapped on time? How was I feeling energy wise? All of those things. So those are 2 life hacks I always use.
No, I've heard a lot of people talk about journaling, I should say. But your explanation there was the one that has hit closest to me. Even this morning, I woke up thinking, I've got a lot of things to do. I'm not sure how I'm going to do them. And your explanation of write it down, so at least it's not in your head anymore, and that gives the space in your head.
Exactly.
What is important. I'm definitely going to take that away. Could that work as if you're speaking to, if you do like a voice to type thing, you just like.
I was just going to say that's a pro tip. just use voice to text. If you're on a desktop, you can use Whisperflow. I don't know if you've used it before. It's brilliant.
I used the app. I used my Apple Mac. It's got the double tap, and the voice
dictation mode.
is
Perfect.
Really good.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, anything. The whole point is not to judge the thoughts that you have, rather just get them out, because you're trying to empty your brain so that you have the space and time to think through the ideas you really care about. And at the same time, you feel sort of relieved that, yes, it's written down somewhere in some shape or form. So I'm not going to forget it, and I can process that when I need to. So
what I'm going to do is set up an Evernote notebook. And just first thing I do when I sit down is stream of consciousness into that.
That stream of consciousness. That's a lovely way to put it.
into that notebook, and that'll be my reference point. If I manage to do anything with those, it'll be useful. But at least the clarity of mind is important, and that's. When I write a to-do list, I know that I'm not going to complete that to-do list, but at least I know it's on there. It's on a piece of paper somewhere, or on my laptop somewhere, or on my iPad somewhere. I've written it down, and I can refer back to it, but it's not stopping me doing other things by it being there. I love asking that question because people do bring things. That's a genuine one that I'm like, I need to do that. I need to do that. That's it.
Maybe a question for you. What's been the most unique life hack you've heard so far on the podcast?
Oh, interesting. Oh, so they're all unique. Everyone's brought a different one. One thing someone said, which is kind of similar to this, was don't have meetings in the morning, or don't have meetings at the time that's most productive for you. So for him, it was his most productive in the morning. So if he has meetings, then that just drains his energy. It's like straight away. So from the start, he was writing a book as well, and he said, I need to write the book in the morning because that's when I'm most effective as a out of the box thinker. And that made me think as well. It's like, all my meetings in the morning, I know that I'm very much a morning person. So it's about prioritizing the time, understanding when you're most effective, and making sure that you're most active and present at that time.
Brilliant.
So I generally love. It feels selfish, but I love asking that question because I do get so much out of these.
That's a lovely question to ask. Lots to learn from it.
So to finish off, Sairam, remind everyone the name of your book, and please where we can find it. And this episode should go out just beforehand, but people can pre-order it to buy, so it lands on the day of release, right? So
So
remind everyone, please.
The book is called AI for the Rest of Us, and it's an illustrated book. So I have hand illustrated the book. It comes out on October 30th. And should be available everywhere where books are sold. And I'll share the link with you, Kobi, and maybe you can put it in the show notes. The book is for people who want to learn AI without needing a PhD. So it won't dumb things down. It will, however, teach you how these algorithms work and what they mean for our lives. So if you are working in and around tech, I think you'll find it quite useful.
Awesome. Sairam, it's been a pleasure to speak to you and get to know you over the past few months, and long may that continue.
Thank you so much for having me, Kobi, and an absolute joy to speak with you as well.
Thank you so much, Sairam, and thank you so much to you guys for listening and watching this episode, wherever you're watching it, on Spotify or on YouTube or wherever you are right now. If you want to get in contact with Sairam, all of his details are in the show notes. And if you want to get in contact with his book, if you want to buy his book, read his book, learn from his book, the details and the links for that are also in the show notes as well. If you have felt this episode has helped you in any way, shape or form, then I really love it if you can just share with one person that comes to mind. Right now, just share with one person. And if you want to take a bit more time to help us out, please write a review or give a star rating or leave a thumbs up, depending on which platform you're on. If you've got a longer moment, then write a review and leave a comment below on YouTube. that's it for this week's episode. And thank you so much, as always, for joining. Thank you so much, as always, for listening and absorbing what this podcast is about. Hope to see you very soon.